So who was Jesus really? He wasn't just a carpenter's son. He was something so much more. And calling Jesus Christ the Son of God just scratches the surface. So we're going to be finding out who Jesus Christ really was and what he was. Was he God? Was he the Son of God? And what does this actually mean? And we're going to see what it truly means is known by very few and actually terrified the church. And by understanding what it means and what Jesus is, we'll also be understanding what you are, because it reveals the truth about yourself as well. So let's jump right into it and discover who Jesus Christ really is. So that's what we're talking about today, my friends. It's going to be good. We're starting it right now. Just before we do, as always, please like and subscribe, because my channel is about raising consciousness. And when you hit like and subscribe, it spreads this information to more people, and I really appreciate it. Also, support my work at patreon.com/MorgueOfficial or on YouTube by hitting the join button right below this video to get access to members only videos. You'll get access to our members only video that we're having right after this. It's going to be good. It's called Can AI Become God? So that's today's members only topic that we're discussing. Let's see. Please follow me on Spotify, Dawn of the New Earth. Dawn of the New Earth on Spotify is my Neogenian podcast where you can find these videos. And again, following me there helps spread this information around. And my new book, Neogenesis, Dawn of the New Mind, comes out 1 week from today. That is May 16th, Thursday. I'll be streaming that day as well. You're going to really like it. I'm very excited about this. It's the first of 5 books that I am releasing this year. All right, my friends, so let's get started. We're talking about Jesus Christ's true identity. We're also going to be talking about Christ's real name as well, because a lot of people in the chat have been asking, what is Jesus Christ's real name? Was it actually Jesus? Was it something else? So we're going to be, but that's just a little piece of what we're talking about. That's really not that important, but we will be addressing it because I know that some people want to know that. But what is really important and what we're going to be talking about today is who Jesus really was. You know, was he God? Was he the Son of God? And what does this really mean? We're going to be taking a look at some banned Gnostic texts as usual as well to understand some of this information. And so let me bring something up here. And what we're going to bring up is, let me see, where did I put it? Here we go. Okay, so what we're going to be doing today is I'm going to read some excerpts from different Gnostic Gospels, like I said, but also from this article called Is Jesus Christ the Son of God or God? Who did Jesus say he was? And this is on medium.com and written by Kyle Davison Bear. So if you like this article, I'm just going to be reading, a few excerpts from it, but you can read the whole thing if you want on medium.com. And if you like it, go give Kyle Davison Bear a follow. All right. So let's take a look at this, and then we're going to be really diving deep into this and seeing how the different Gnostic interpretations reveal this as well. So let me see. Kyle says, many Christians are frustrated with Jesus. He never seems to really tell people who he is. And this is going to be important. All right. So keep this in mind. Jesus didn't really go around in the Bible saying, I'm God, I'm God, I'm God. What he said was something very specific, and we'll be explaining why that is. So Kyle continues by saying, why does Jesus keep using titles like Son of God and Son of Man? Why can't Jesus simply say, I am God? So this is going to be important. Remember, we're talking about Son of God. So, and Kyle says this might sound strange, but Jesus did say, I am God, but he said it in a way that first century Jewish ears would understand. So let's unpack what the word son means. Okay. So Matthew 3:17 says, and a voice from heaven said, this is my son whom I love. With him I am well pleased. Kyle says this is Christ's introduction to the world. God could have used any possible descriptor of Jesus. So why does God the Father start by saying that Jesus is his son? To modern Western ears, being called son doesn't mean much. We assume it means any male child. To our ears, every boy who exists is the son of his father. So according to Kyle, the son means what we're all familiar with. But according to Kyle, it has a different meaning. And this is going to be important for what we talk about later. So Kyle says, if you could travel to Israel in the time of Jesus and you asked a man on the street whether he had any sons, he might say to you, yes, I am proud to say that I have 3 boys and 1 son. By saying this, it's not that he's declaring favoritism for one child over the other. Rather, he is rejoicing in the fact that one of his boys has finally become his son. So we're seeing that son, or at least according to Kyle, is used in a very specific way that is different than how we are used to it. It says there would come a point at which a young boy would be ready to leave his childhood behind and become a man. They would hold a special ceremony, and once this boy had officially become a man, he could finally be called the son of his father. To call someone a son, so why did he have to wait so long? Because of what it is to be a son. To call someone a son declared that the son is what the father is. So this is important. For us, son just means male child. That's how we understand son to mean. But in this context, a son is one who has become a man. And of course, the father is a man as well, in contrast to a boy. So when a boy becomes a man, well, that boy is now what the father is, because he is a man and the father is a man. And he becomes a son. So the son is what the father is. So do you see this connection that once a boy becomes a son, they become a man, and now they are what the father is? Now, I know this is very gendered, right? We're talking about man and sons and boys and all this. But we're going to see, of course, this applies to any gender. We're looking at things allegorically. And in these terms, we're looking at Jesus Christ, who's commonly depicted as male, and in the context of the language that was used at that time. But, I think most of you know my position on gender. This is not relegated to just men or males, but understanding these words are important for what we're going to be unpacking. So the son is what the father is. They are both adult males. In John 17:12, Jesus calls Judas the son of destruction, as Judas betrays Jesus. And by this, Jesus wasn't saying anything about Judas's parents, obviously. Rather, he was stating that Judas's crime was so severe that he would unavoidably be destroyed because of it. The son is what the father is. To be the son of destruction meant that Judas's fate had been sealed. His destruction was certain. And there's more examples that Kyle gives. He says, likewise, when King David sentences a man to be killed, David calls him a son of death. And this means that the son will be what the father is, death. So calling someone a son, it says every Jewish person in the first century understood it plainly. The son is what the father is. If you are a son of destruction, you're going to be destroyed. If you're the son of death, you're going to die. Therefore, when God the Father declares Jesus to be his son, he is declaring clearly and unequivocally that Jesus is what his father is, God. And this is important to know because we're going to be unpacking all this. Remember, we're finding out who Jesus really is. Was he God? Was he the son of God? Is there actually, they're saying there's no difference here. Is there a difference? What does this actually mean? We're going to be finding out, but it's important to have this preliminary information. So according to Kyle, the son is what the father is. Eternal, uncreated, divine, all-powerful God. So when people ask Jesus plainly, are you the son of God then? Jesus responded by saying, you are right that I am. And they exploded with fury, declaring, what further testimony do we need? We have heard it ourselves from his own lips. So they held no doubt about who Jesus said he was. By stating that he was the Son of God, Jesus declared himself to be equal with God, to be what his Father in heaven is. And John 5:18 says, this is why the Jews were seeking all the more to unalive him. Can't say that word, you know what I mean. Because not only was he breaking the Sabbath, but he was calling God his own Father, making himself equal with God. So here we can understand that according to Kyle, that when Jesus is calling himself the Son of God, he is equating himself to God. So one would, and in typical, remember, I was born in a Christian household. I was a Christian for many years, a devout Christian for many years. So I'm very familiar with what Christians believe. So of course, what Christians believe is that Jesus Christ is the Son of God. And this means that Jesus Christ also is God. So is that true? Well, yes and no. It depends how you interpret it. So calling Jesus the Son of God, it really only scratches the surface. So what Christ was actually an emanation of something that connects all of us. And this reveals what you are as well. For a long time, almost 2,000 years, people have been wondering about Christ's true nature. Right? We've been taught that he's the Son of God, the Savior of humanity. But being the Son of God is something a lot more important. His identity is connected to teachings that have been hidden, like the Gospel of Thomas. And so this gets into the Gnostic Gospels. And you know the drill with the Gnostics. If you're not familiar, the Gnostics were a group of Christians whose teachings were considered heretical and banned by the early church. So here's the important difference. According to the Gnostics, Jesus Christ wasn't just a man, nor was he an exclusive Son of God. Instead, they saw him as an emanation of the One, the divine source that created everything. So to them, Jesus was was not unique in his divinity. It's the same divine spark that lives in each of us. So the important thing to grasp here is that when Jesus says that he is the Son of God, does that mean that he is God? Yes. But he is not the only Son of God. We are all sons of God. And if we take a look at the Gospel of Thomas, Jesus actually says this outright, explicitly. And the Gospel of Thomas is one of my favorite Gnostic Gospels. I have a lot of Gnostic Gospels that I like. So it's hard to pick a favorite, but I do like it a lot. Let me bring it up and I'm going to read this to you because this is very important in understanding this. And we're going to talk more about, who Christ's name was and more. But before we do that, so the Gospel of Thomas is one of these Gnostic texts that was banned by the early church. And it opens by saying, these are the hidden sayings that the living Jesus spoke. And Jesus said, whoever finds the correct interpretation of these sayings will never die. And you're going to notice that a major theme of the Gospel of Thomas is that we are all God and that we are all eternal. And that's why he says, whoever finds the correct interpretations of these sayings will never die. Why does he say that? Because when you realize that you are God, you realize you're immortal. That's the thing, is that we all have access to the power of immortality when we realize what we are. It's like this. If you're playing a video game, when your video game character dies, do you die? No, you don't die. If you believed that you were the video game character, though, you would know that. So the same situation is happening right now. We're all eternal minds. In the Neogenian system, we are what we call zetas. We're eternal minds, eternal souls, systems of frequency and energy. Our bodies are just avatars. So when Jesus Christ says, whoever finds the correct interpretation of these sayings will never die, he's basically saying, when you realize you are God, you'll realize you're eternal. And the next line confirms this. It says, Jesus said, the seeker shouldn't stop until he finds. Keep searching until you find it. When he does find, he will be disturbed. After being disturbed, he will be astonished. Then he will reign over everything. So think about that. You shouldn't stop looking for the truth until you find it. You shouldn't stop looking for the secret until you find it. But when you do find it, you will be disturbed. Why will you be disturbed? Well, think about if you were playing a video game your whole life, but you thought you were the character, and then you found out that you weren't the character, that the video game was false, you're an illusion, and that you were something more. You'd probably be pretty disturbed, right? Everything that you thought was true isn't. It's like the movie The Matrix. Neo was pretty darn disturbed when he realized that everything was not what he thought it was. After having been disturbed, he will be astonished. Because once you get over the shock of what you are and what reality is, you will be amazed by the infinite power that you and all of us have. You will be astonished. And then he will reign over everything. Then we will realize our power, and together we are God, and we can create anything that we so will. And this continues by saying, Jesus says, if your leaders say to you, look, the kingdom of heaven is in the sky, then the birds will be there before you are. If they say the kingdom is in the sea, then the fish will be there before you. Rather, the kingdom is within you and it's outside of you. So once again, he's emphasizing, you see, this gospel contains a secret, but once you know the secret, I'm telling you what the secret is right now, it becomes very obvious what Jesus is talking about, what this whole book is about. It's that you are God, and the kingdom of God isn't in the sky. It's not in the sea. It's not somewhere you go to when you die. It's within you and it's outside of you. It's a state of consciousness and it's the world around you. And I know that this kind of confuses people sometimes when you go, well, what do you mean it's within you and outside of you? What does that mean? A good way to understand this is by thinking about a dream. When you are having a dream, like playing a video game or like being in the Matrix, you think that it's real. Unless you're lucid, you think that the dream is real. But in that dream realm, you are God. And your kingdom is within you and all around you. It's within you because it's all in your mind. It is a projection of your mind. It's within you. And it's all around you because the dream world is projected all around you. The same thing is happening right now all around us. This is a collective shared dream built from the frequency patterns of every single one of us that we all contribute to. Hence why it is a stable, persistent, long, shared dream that persists over time. And it is within us and outside of us. So this is that collective realization. Now, let's bring it back. The very next line, and again, this is such a powerful gospel. The very next line, some people consider this to be the oldest gospel, by the way. I'm pretty sure it's disputed. Not everyone agrees, but a lot of people think this could have been the oldest gospel, possibly. But the very next line says, when you understand yourselves, you will be understood, and you will realize what? That you are sons of the living Father. So what did we just all say about when you are the son of something, you are that thing? And here Jesus is saying, when you understand yourselves, when you understand yourself, when you figure out what you are, you will realize that you are sons of the living Father, that you are what the Father is. You are divine. And this is the age-old saying that humanity has just overlooked for thousands upon thousands of years, which is know thyself. Know thyself and you will know the universe and the gods. All of the esoteric mysteries and occultism and secrets of the universe and everything that you can possibly think of is all wrapped up and revealed in that single aphorism. Know thyself, and you will know the gods and the universe, because you are the gods and the universe. We all are. So Jesus says, when you understand yourselves, you will be understood, and you will realize that you are sons of the living Father. He continues by saying, if you don't know yourselves, then you exist in poverty, and you are that poverty. You are that thing. You aren't a son of the living Father. You aren't what the Father is. Deep down you are. But if you haven't realized it yet, you are in poverty. What's poverty? Poverty is a lack. You are missing something. You are missing the fact and the understanding that you are divine and that you are eternal. Jesus said, recognize what is right in front of you, and that which is hidden from you will be revealed. Nothing hidden will fail to be displayed. He's saying, look at what's right in front of you and understand and realize it. It's right here. You're looking for the secrets, they're here. It's like when you're dreaming. What you're looking for is right. Like, wake up. This is a dream. Hello. All that you are looking for is right here, right in front of you. If you were trying to wake up another dream character, you'd be like, look, 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 it's a dream. It's all around. It's right here. Recognize what is right in front of you. It's right in front of you. It's inside you. It's not in some God, not in some heaven. Like Jesus says, it's not in the sea. It's not in the sky. It's inside you and all around you, right here, right now. And anyone who tells you differently is a liar. They're trying to control you. They want something from you. So here's another amazing quote, right? You want even something more specific. Jesus said, if they ask you, where are you from? Reply to them, we have come from the place where light is produced from itself. It came and revealed itself in their image. And if they ask you, are you it? Reply to them, we are his sons. We are chosen ones of the living Father. Again, you can't get more explicit than that. Is Jesus Christ the Son of God, and does that mean he is God? Yes, but he is not the exclusive Son of God. Every single one of us is. Jesus wasn't the only Son of God. He was one example of this divine source. So all reality is a mental existence. So according to the Gnostics, the true God, the highest God, was the one, a mind, a pure mind of divine light. This is why Jesus says, we have come from the place where light is produced from itself. According to Gnostic cosmology, the one is a singular mind of divine light, and every single one of us are divine sparks or emanations of this God. So I would be a spark of the divine, you would be a spark of the divine, Jesus would be a spark of the divine, we would all be pieces of God, like fractured shards of a mirror. Now, in the Neogenian system, it's a little different than that. It's a little more modern, but it's very similar. But the difference is that every single one of us is an individual soul that we call a zeta. And together, we make a singular network mind, which could be considered what we call the absolute. So it's not like that there is just a singular thing that we are pieces of. Rather, we are nodes within a singular network. The concept is similar, but there are some important nuances. It's not like a cosmic oneness that we all get absorbed back into and lose ourselves. Now, the idea between like identity and diversity does get complicated, but that's not something we have time to talk about right now. But in a nutshell, the difference is that we all are all individual eternal minds, eternal souls called zetas, that we exist together as a network that we call the absolute. Okay? So, but you can see it's similar to what is being talked about in these books, like the Gospel of Thomas. Not exactly the same, but very similar. And so Jesus was, according to, Gnostic understanding, an emanation or an example of this divine source, the one. And why was he here? He was here to awaken us to our own divine consciousness. He wasn't trying to start some weird new religion like what Christianity eventually became, but he was trying to remind us of that divine spark that's in every single one of us. So, of course, the early church leaders weren't very happy about this. They didn't like Gnostic teachings. They considered them heretical, and they suppressed them for centuries. They did not like the idea of Jesus' shared divinity. Why? Well, because it threatens the whole establishment of control and power of the church. If people believed they could find their own spiritual knowledge, it would weaken the hierarchical structures that those in power depend on. It would weaken the power of control to be like, oh, you're not a powerful God. No, the church wants to tell you are a broken, dirty, flawed sinner that is in need of saving. And we, of course, can help you and help save you. Just come to church every weekend, follow these rules, do what we tell you, vote for what we want you to vote for, whatever. All of these systems are systems of power and control so that you are constantly not thinking about yourself and your own power. You've given your power away to an external being that doesn't exist, and you live in constant fear of hell and are have made your life nothing about yourself, but about pleasing a God so that you don't go to hell and you go to heaven. And this is, of course, completely contrary to what the truth is. So, like I said before, Jesus says that the kingdom of heaven, it's not a place you go to when you die. It's not a place you have to avoid, follow all these rules to get to. It's in every single one of us because we are all children of the one. That's why he says we are sons of the living Father. We are his sons. We are chosen sons of the living. We are the chosen ones of the living Father. And of course, we can use a gender neutral term. Instead of saying sons of the living Father, we are children of the one. And we are the one. We are the one expressing itself in multiplicity. So the early church didn't like this, and it was labeled a heresy. So the point is that Jesus, as an emanation of the one, isn't limited to him alone. It's within all of us. We are not separate from the divine. We are part of it. And understanding that changes how we see ourselves and others. Think about it. When we understand that, and this is why it's so important to change the world. Make sure my mic is still on. This is why it's so important that to change the world, we must have a new consciousness. This is why we are the second coming of Christ. Does that make sense now? We are the second coming of Christ. It's not Jesus coming down from the clouds. It's the rising of a new consciousness that understands what we are in our collective divinity. That is the second coming of Christ. And that is what we are. And when we understand that and tap into our own power, that's how we can change the world, because it's a shift in consciousness where we don't see each other as separate selves. We understand that we are separate in diversity, but that we are connected by an underlying framework that connects all reality together. So then we see ourselves as various expressions of the one. When we realize that we're various expressions of the one, we're not going to hurt each other, because to hurt you would be hurt myself. You don't hit yourself in the hand with a hammer. That's ridiculous. This is why a new consciousness is required, because if we're simply self-aware, human beings don't understand that connectivity. And so they're like, oh, well, it's my family, my country, my God against your family and your country and your God. And it's this clash and divisive. And that's the nature of self-awareness. Self-awareness evolved to allow us to survive, not to get along. Self-awareness evolved to allow us to survive. And it had us get along to a certain degree. It had us get along with people who are similar to us, because we would form groups and tribes to protect us from other groups and tribes who were different from us. Or we would attack other groups and tribes that were different from us. So self-awareness evolves to see the other, that which is different, as a threat. All awareness, however, does not see difference or the other as a threat. It sees it as a reflection. You see the difference. It's a reflection. When you see a reflection in the mirror, you're not like a dog. You don't bark at the mirror and try and attack the mirror. You don't see it as an enemy. But people are doing the same type of thing when they go to war with each other. They're attacking their reflection in the mirror. They're seeing the other as a threat, when the other is not a threat. But we need to step into this all awareness. So then people will like, oh, is the apocalypse here? Is the second coming of Christ here? Well, kinda, yeah. It absolutely is, but not in terms of the way that it is traditionally thought of. The apocalypse is occurring because it is a revelation. Apocalypse means unveiling. It is an unveiling. It is a revelation of what we truly are, a new consciousness, and that is the second coming of Christ, and the realization that we are children of the one, which makes us emanations or particularities of the universal one. We are all particulars. We are all individual, eternal, self-contained powers. And we have the power to transform the world and transform ourselves. So you can see that this is completely different than how modern Christianity interprets it. Jesus wasn't the exclusive Son of God. He came to remind us of all the divine potential that every single one of us has already. And this truth has been buried for centuries. But now it's ready to be brought to light. So one thing that I want to address real quick, okay? Because this is all very, very important. There's nothing more important than this. The raising of consciousness is the most important thing that we can do, that we can work on, because it's going to give us all a better life. That's the whole point of it. Because when you reach a new consciousness, that's why we want to institute a teleocracy. Teleocracy coming from the word telos, which means purpose, to create a purposeful society. What purpose? To maximize the quality of life for everyone. Really, these things should be obvious. Should it not be obvious? But people think that it's a utopian idea, a crazy pie in the sky idea. No. It should be obvious that we are here to live the best life possible and help each other live the best life possible. Human beings are simply crazy for the most part, but we can alleviate that insanity by raising consciousness to all aware, what we call all awareness, eventually hyper awareness, but all awareness is the first stage, from self-awareness to all awareness, then to hyper awareness. So anyway, like I said, this stuff is really important, but let's take a minute. All right. So now we know like what the Son of God means, how it relates to us, as that we are all children of the one, that we are all God, that we are all divine. But I know a lot of people are going to come on here and be like, well, some people are going to be like, well, Jesus never existed, or blah, blah, blah. So here's the thing. Did Jesus ever exist or not? It doesn't matter. Right. So we don't know for sure. I believe he did. So my belief is that Jesus Christ was a real person. He didn't walk on water. He didn't raise from the dead or do any of those miracles. But I believe that Jesus Christ was a real person who understood to a very large degree what he was and wanted to communicate that with other people and was possibly unalived because of that. That's what I believe. Now, do I know that for sure? No. There are some scholars who believe that Jesus Christ is completely fictional and never existed. But ultimately, the point is that it doesn't matter. It doesn't. These are all stories that teach. And so the question is, what lesson are we going to learn from these stories? Modern Christianity says, learn from these stories that you are a dirty, flawed sinner that is in need of salvation, or else you're going to go to hell and burn for eternity. That's what modern Christianity says to learn from these stories. What Gnostics say to learn from these stories, what we say to learn from these stories, is that when Jesus says that he is the Son of God, or that he is God, he is saying that every single one of us is God, like in the Gospel of Thomas, when he says that you are sons of the living Father, and reply to them, we are his sons, we are chosen ones of the living Father, we have come from a place where light is produced from itself. So it's about learning and understanding your divinity, your power, and your connection to the divine. And so when it comes to these stories, it doesn't matter if they actually happened or not. It matters what you're going to learn from them. And it's up to you which version you are going to take as being true. Which version do you think is true? And that's up to you. That's not something I can tell you. That's not something that anyone can tell you. You have to arrive to that conclusion through your own mind and through your own reasoning and through your own internal reflection. So I just want to point that out there for people who might be looking. I don't look at these things like, obviously, I don't believe in a lot of the Gnostic ideas. Like, I don't believe that Yaldabaoth exists. I don't believe that, Sophia exists. I believe they exist as archetypal patterns or structures in the mind, structures of the psyche. But they are powerful stories that we can learn from. So real quick, though, just because of the history element of this, I know a lot of people are interested in Jesus Christ's name, right? People say, well, what was Jesus Christ's real name? Well, so here's the thing. His real name was either Yeshu or Yeshua. Now, okay, there's a lot of dispute of this as well. So I'll have to say that I take this with, do your own research. There's a lot of people who say a lot of different things. But for the most part, the general consensus is that his real name was Yeshu or Yeshua. And this is because in the ancient Hebrew, the name Yeshua was a common name that meant something along the lines of salvation, something like that. But it was Yeshua. Now, over time, different cultures and languages interpreted it differently. And this change was a matter of transliteration. All right? It was a transliteration. So Christianity spread across Greece or Greek-speaking regions. And when it became encountering that Greek aspect, the Hebrew name Yeshua was transliterated into, what is it? Jesus. Jesus. So it went from Yeshua to Jesus. And this was to better match how Greeks would speak and write. That's what it was about. It wasn't about literally translating, but transliterating. And transliterating is about approximating the sounds of the original name in a different language, which is different from translation. It's like trying to get the same sound, but in a different language. And so as Christianity continued to spread, it eventually went from Greek-speaking regions to Latin-speaking regions. And Jesus evolved into Jesus. And this evolved into Jesus in English translations after centuries of change. So you can kind of think of it as like transliteration, but a game of telephone. It went from Yeshu to Yeshua to Jesus to Jesus. And you know what? That's likely not the whole story. It could have been something completely different. We don't know. We don't know. But to the best of our knowledge, for the most part, the general consensus, looking at historical documents, this seems to be more or less what we can know and how the name has evolved over time. But I always want to emphasize, right? It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if his name was Yeshu or Bob. And it doesn't matter if he actually existed or not. What matters is that we can learn and understand and take away from these stories. And that's exactly what Jesus would say to you if he were here. He'd be like, hey, it doesn't matter what my name is. Call me Chuck. I don't care. What matters is that know yourself, goddammit. He'd be saying, like I've been telling you, like everyone's been telling you for thousands of years, know yourself and you will know the universe and the gods. So the important thing to remember, the most powerful thing to remember is that we are God. We are the children of the One. We are all the sons of the Father. And stepping into that power is what it's all about. It's the raising of a consciousness that is critical to the building of a new world. So who was Jesus Christ? I believe Jesus Christ was a person that existed, that was an extremely enlightened being that realized that he was a divine emanation from the One and wanted others to realize that they were divine emanations from the One. And you know what's so ironic? Like I said, I grew up in a strict Christian household. What's so ironic is that in Christianity, they're constantly saying, be like Jesus. Be like Jesus. Be like Jesus. That's drilled into your head over and over and over. Be like Jesus. Well, okay, yeah, we should all be like Jesus in that we should all be God. We are all God. But of course, that's blasphemy. No. Do you see how nefarious and evil Christianity is? In that when you say that you're divine, you're a sinner, you're a blasphemer. You're one of you're on par with Satan. Declaring yourself divine. The audacity. That was Satan's sin. And what was the first sin of humanity? Knowledge. You see what a nefarious system this is to make declaring oneself divine the ultimate evil and knowledge the root of all sin. It's an extremely nefarious system, and I know firsthand. And this is why it's very important. By the way, I want to shout out a lot of people in the chat today telling me about their RTS. So I have RTS, religious trauma syndrome, and I'm really happy when people share what that is. For those who don't know, religious trauma syndrome is a condition that can occur when one leaves a strict religious environment, and it can mimic the systems of PTSD and CPTSD. And I'm really happy when people in the chat talk about this and bring attention to this, because it's really important to bring awareness to this so that we can understand the damage that religion does. So I hope you understood this, my friends. Who is Jesus Christ? Jesus Christ is the same thing you are. It's the same thing I am. It's the same thing we all are. And we together, we are the second coming of Christ. We are that new consciousness. So if you want to know more about this stuff, check out my other videos. My first book, the Neogenesis Dawn of the New Mind, comes out on May 16th. Check it out. Please like and subscribe. It's about sharing this information, spreading this information. When you hit like and subscribe, it spreads this info around. Follow me on Spotify, Dawn of the New Earth. That's another great way to spread this information around. It's a great place to listen to all this and watch this. Spotify has video now as well. And then finally, if you want to help my channel grow, support over on patreon.com/MorgueOfficial or tier 2 or higher here on YouTube by hitting the join button below this video. You'll get access to all our members only videos, a new one every single week. Today's video is, can AI become God? That's an interesting one. The answer is very intriguing. All right, my friends, thank you so much for joining me. I want to give a shout out to everyone who supports, especially Renaissance Fairy, Cassidy, Angela, the Halloween Mom, DB, Nusalina, Eric, Christopher, Joel, Phillips, Luke, Thomas, Ryan, Antoine, and everyone else. Thank you very much.